Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Sanda. Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, first and foremost, this series is based on a manga of the same name. The mangaka behind it is Paru Itadaki. She's also the same mangaka behind Beastars, which I've never watched, but I've seen images and clips and stuff pop up anytime new episodes or whatever came up. But I know that that's the manga I think she's best known for. But this is such an interesting premise, because I couldn't quite tell what the story's about until I looking at the trailers, because any of the trailers I saw at the time were still in Japanese. There was no English subtitled trailers. So I didn't know what to make of it, and then I read what the premise was. I was like, wait, that's what this story's about? Because I saw, quote-unquote, Sanda, but, the image, it's like the front cover, the first volume of the manga. The old guy, Santa Claus, right? I didn't know what, I thought it was oh, that's probably the main character. Had no idea that there was, essentially, and I didn't think about this until I was watching the episode, pretty much this is kind of like a Shazam story, specifically, DC Shazam, because you have to get... Oh yeah, but I was about to say, I don't have to specify that because he's Captain Marvel is the name parallel between Marvel and DC, but it's Shazam. You're a kid, uses powers to basically make yourself an adult, except it's an even bigger gap and it's a whole extra layer to the whole situation, but I'll get to that when we break things down. I mean, I love that we start in the middle of shit popping off, where you're just wait, Fuyumura is trying to stab him, and you just dropped in the middle of it, having no idea what the context of anything is. Wait, why is she trying to do that? And he's dodging it and avoiding it. And then how do you go back to pretend everything's fine when someone comes in oh, hey, because you two are the co-representatives of class presidents kind of the class and everything. And then, yeah, there she is hiding the knife beside her eraser, and they're just both pretending everything's fine, and she's yo, by the time that day is done, I'm gonna kill you. And it's he does nothing about it. He tells his friend about it. He's yo, we should report her. He's no, I don't want to embarrass her, because his interpretation is, oh my god, I'm trying to kill you. He's oh, that's obviously code for, oh my god, I'm going to tell you how I really feel, because obviously, she's at the age where she's going through puberty, and this is her way of it's the most roundabout way of explaining that situation. I was how do you come to that conclusion is mind-bogglingly crazy. And even his friend is are you sure about it? He's don't worry about it, because he kind of doesn't believe that she was actually trying to kill him. So it's yeah, it's just her just trying to be cute and stuff like that. And as they're walking by, Fuyumura is overhearing all this. It's okay, well, at least now I know you're not telling anyone, but I have to be careful because you are running your mouth off, so I need to strike while the iron's hot while I got the opportunity. So we learned some things about the world. It doesn't come up in this episode, and maybe it will in another episode, but this is further in the future. It's not this story takes place present day. It's I want to say I remember reading it's 2050 is when this story takes place, but we hear Christmas is kind of such an old thing that no one really knows. Even the conversation about seasons comes up later on in the episode, that I guess where the state of the world is now, the seasons seem to be such a far gone thing. It's just it isn't divided up into the year isn't divided up into 4 seasons for whatever reason. So I'm curious all that went down to lead to the world like that. And also, why is it that Sanda... Well, I was about to say in retrospect is interesting, because Sanda's friend was kind of bringing up the whole oh yeah, Christmas thing. It's oh, what's Christmas? And now in retrospect, we see later on, it's oh, Sanda knew what was going on. He just played ignorant because he didn't want to he's oh, what is that? Oh, I have no idea. Oh, Christmas? That sounds weird. Oh, some guy coming to you and giving kids presents? That's weird. That's wild. Huh. Oh well, keep moving on, not wanting to wear his jacket despite how cold it is outside. And then later on, Fuyumura is trying to make her move even more so. She's still playing it slow, but it's because to break this seal on Sanda's whole Santa Claus situation, there has to be precursors to it. I guess she was trying to skip some of those earlier steps by just going through the last step, she was just trying to, I guess, like skip ahead to that, thinking that was be enough. Because I'm curious, because the question, like even Sanda has that we never got an answer to this episode is, how does Fuyumura even know all this? Like, how did she know to even approach Sanda that he would be a descendant of Santa Claus? Like, how do you even know that? Also, how do you know anything about, like, to break the seal? Like, who gave you that information? And that might be an important thing, too, of, like, did she stumble across this information? Did someone specifically give her this information because they wanted a Santa Claus to exist in this time frame? I don't know. There's a lot in that front, but, like, why later on she goes through the necessary steps, yet she was going to, but I guess maybe the argument is earlier in the episode at the beginning she was so desperate now that she knows, like, for her to only make a move now today must mean she just found out about this, or she's been building up and working up the courage to do it, trying to plan everything out, because the whole point is, like, Sanda has to wear red for him to turn into Santa Claus. So her whole point was to, like, get him to inadvertently wear red, and, like, maybe also thought, like, hurting him or getting him close to death would be enough to activate his abilities. But I'm wondering, in between then and later on, when she actually does the steps to break the seal, did she learn something in between the beginning of the episode and then, or did she go like, well, I'm skipping a few steps because I got too ahead of myself because I'm so desperate to get you to turn into Santa Claus that I have to go back. I have to break the seal first and then force your hand. So the seal is that, what was it? Like, I know the second step was, like, you basically have to basically fulfill the promise of a kid, but I can't remember what the first step is. But whatever the case may be, Sanda performed all those things, especially when he ended up giving her a racer. She's like, "Cool, you gave me a." Oh yeah, it has to be. You have to do something specifically on December 25th, and that's why, like, now he started really reacting. And now that those seals are broken, the final thing is to get him to wear red, and that should have been the key sign that Sanda knew what was what, because he was like, "No, I'm not going to wear my coat," and she's like, "Oh, if it's not true, if this is all BS, then wear the coat and it'll be fine. Like, and then we can talk afterwards." Because Fuyumura is desperate to find her friend Ona, who, I don't know if it's just, like, her only friend. It seems like that's the case because, like, the flashbacks only showed them. She seems very quiet and off-putting otherwise, but it seems like Ono's the only person who saw Fuyumura for who she was, because even Fuyumura, like, has such a stoic face, but Ono saw, like, oh, she like looked at, like, her as, like, oh, you remind me of the different seasons, even though the seasons don't exist anymore. Like, all the different, like faces you can potentially make, I see that, and wanted to celebrate Christmas with her. Like, it's like, right, let's Merry Christmas, and next year we'll spend Christmas together. But that never came because we have that Christmas now, and her friend's gone. She's been gone, missing for a while, and perceived dead. Well, not perceived. She was just finally marked as deceased after not being able to find her. But it's like, Fuyumura, it's like no one really tried, and that's why she needs Santa. Like, Santa is able to fulfill the promises of kids, and she's also like, I don't know what Santa is fully capable of, so whatever you're able to do, I want to use that to find my friend. And so she's willing to go this far because she's desperate, and she ends up stabbing Sanda. But even she was kind of concerned. It's either like she was like, I put all my faith in this, but there's a chance this might not be real because Sanda's here potentially dying. But then there's also the element of, well, hopefully you don't die before you transform. So it could be a little column A, a little column B in that moment. But she was freaking out, thinking like, oh crap, this isn't going to work the way I want it to. But then Sanda proceeds to transform. The thing that caught me off guard, and this is what made me think of the Shazam parallel, I would have never thought that Sanda keeps his mind. I thought they were going to be like two separate personalities, kind of like the example I always go to, because it's just like my go-to, is like, if you're familiar with Rosario plus vampires, it's basically two personalities occupying the same body. It's it's inner Mocha and outer Mocha. I thought like maybe there'd be some parallel there, especially like with the whole transforming situation. I guess a more recent situation, especially with the whole science saru of it all, would be the Dandadan situation, where it's like, without going into it, no spoilers for anyone that hasn't watched or read Dandadan, the whole evil eye of it all, how there's a duality to that situation. Like, oh yeah, another example would be like, another spoiler, but this is a little farther out. The wolf situation, if you've ever watched or read Witch Watch, I was thinking maybe it'd be a little more along those lines, and like I said, the evil eye situation from Dan to Dan. But I thought those would be, but like I said, it's a Shazam thing where it's like, oh, you're in the body of an adult, but you still have your mind. And I love that Sanda like is kind of conceited, where he's kind of worried because he's like, oh, I'm this older guy. He's like, oh, my voice that was on the cusp of changing, my face that were like, my cheeks that were like baby smooth and brought people happiness. And he's like freaking out about like, I'm a 14-year-old, but I look the way I do now. But also he's like, Fuyumura, like, how the hell did you know about this? Like, because it's a family secret. And I wonder, is there a time frame before someone's no longer eligible for the curse to be broken? Like, do you reach a certain age where you can't? I'm bringing out all the references. I wonder if it's like a Call of the Night situation where it's like there's a year time frame to a certain aspect of the story. Certain conditions have to be met within a year's time frame. So I'm wondering if the same thing is applicable. Not a year, but maybe there's a certain window you can only like break the curse and become Santa Claus. After a certain point, it becomes moot. I mean, we also don't know what Santa's family situation is. Like, maybe he's the only surviving person in his bloodline anymore, so it has to fall to him. I mean, also, this is the only person that Fuyumura has a daily access to. So it's like, especially because she thinks Ono never went outside. She was always buried in books. So whoever was responsible for her disappearing has to be someone within the school. So it's like, right, why not use someone who can become Santa Claus, who's already in the school? It's just, and once again, you have daily access to them versus trying to get someone else in his family. Because, like I said, we don't know the rules of the situation in its totality. Like how we got here, why the Santa Claus like powers are sealed away in this family's bloodline to begin with. I mean, how many Santas have existed prior to Sanda? You know, like how many people in his bloodline ended up unlocking the seal, and then does it automatically lock with a new generation, or did someone have to reseal it after it was unlocked previously, or is Sanda the first one that's been unlocked in a very long time? Like I said, a lot of questions. Maybe we'll get answers to as the series progresses. Sanda ended up turning back into his kid form when he ended up eating some of like those jelly beans, and I don't know if it's specifically those or if it's just like sweets in general, which almost feels like that's supposed to play into the whole like, right, when you're leaving stuff for Santa, it's cookies and milk. So I wonder if it's supposed to be something like that, where it's supposed to be like, I wonder, will there be any milk related thing or cookie thing? Because like I said, it's jelly beans here, but maybe it's like correlative to like just sweets in general, so that's supposed to be like a little stand-in for the cookies. But I wonder if there's going to be like a milk parallel or necessary component to all of this or not. But obviously, Fuyumura went through a lot to get Sanda to turn into Santa Claus, and for him to immediately undo it by eating those jellies. He said, oh, cool, I'm back, that's great. But then Fuyumura is like, nah, I'm going to need you to see what you're fully capable of. So I've set up a bomb in this classroom. And he's like, you didn't do that. And she's like, all right, see if I'm bluffing or not. And he's like, well, she did go through with stabbing me, so she is that determined. But it's like, for her, she has to finally, like, to really know what, she has to first learn what he's capable of as Santa, so that she can, because he, at that point, had already made his promise, like, all right, as a Santa Claus, he's driven by this instinctual need to make kids smile. Because he's like, even though he's like, I'm 14 and I rationalize Fuyumura as like a peer in this like Santa Claus form, I'm driven by this instinct of, I recognize her as a little girl and I need to save her. I think that was also part of it. Like, going back to it, the first part was like, you had to like befriend like a little kid or something. You had to do something related to a little kid specifically on December 25th. And she's like, I guess she's like, age wise, I'm on the cusp, and luckily enough still count as a kid in the grand rules of Santa Claus, I guess. Either way, Sanda's trying to do everything. It's like, oh, there's a bomb in the classroom, but no one's listening to him. He's like, well, of course I'm going to sound crazy. Oh, I knocked over a whole bunch of thumbtacks. I need to find him. Oh, let me crawl across the floor. It's like, that's not going to lead to anything. But, looking around and kind of realizing, and you kind of feel, he starts beating himself up a little bit because he's like, right, there's a little bit of that Santa Claus even in me. Like, now that it's unlocked, it's there. Even when I'm Santa, I still feel those Santa instincts. And he's like, right, all these kids had their wishes and stuff like that, and it's like, I feel like bad that I'm doing a sucky job because I'm not able to fulfill their promises of what they want. And he's like, all right, and he puts on a red coat and transforms. So in that moment, he seems like a scary random old guy that pops out of nowhere in the classroom choking Fuyumura, and it's like, yo, if you don't get out of here, give me a whole bunch of money, I'm gonna snap this kid's neck. So everyone runs. And it's like, how did you figure it out? Well, for Sanda, it's like, well, everyone was writing down kind of what they want. He's like, as a Santa, that kind of like instinctually, like he picked up and noticed she wasn't writing anything down too. So he's like, well, I was going to ask you questions about what you wanted, and then ultimately, and it turns out you had the bomb strapped to you the entire time. For her, it's like, I know what I want. I don't need to write it down. The fact is that I know that having someone you care about taken from you severely outweighs the joy of being with that person. But then Santa brings up like the whole joy of being the bigger joy, even bigger joy you get when you're reunited with them, that feeling, And then it turns out the bomb is still ticking down because Fuyumura never bothered to like disarm it because I guess she's still in the testing process, but she probably also got distracted with everything and reminiscing, and it just kind of went off. At first, I was almost thinking like, oh, it's going to be like fake, and then the classroom exploded. I'm like, oh no. She even said it herself. She's like, I don't like bluff. I don't lie. I tell you how it is. I have no reason to lie. So, luckily, Sanda was able to get the bomb off of her, and he's consumed in the flames, but he's perfectly fine. And this is where Fuyumura is like, okay, 3 things. 1, if he puts on something red, he transforms. 2, the jelly beans help turn him back into Sanda. And 3, he's immune to fire. And it's like, especially because he was doing the whole thing about the chimney, and I was like, oh, I never thought about the fact that Santa might be fireproof because of the whole chimney thing. That I would have never correlated that until he was referencing coming down the chimney to fulfill like the promise to kids. So it seems like he kind of like summoned, like gathered up all the fire around him and kind of kept it there. And it kind of seemed like he kind of made like a cold breeze like shift around to kind of like snuff out the fire. It seems like that's how he did it. I love, because like I love that animation style of just like how he looked in the fire. It just reminds me of like some of the Okurun stuff from season 2, like specifically like the second episode 9 of season 2, like when Okurun goes crazy fast and he looks like, it kind of reminded me of like that animation of like he looked like the shadowy being. The animation reminded me of that. Once again, it's not Saru, so understandably. But yeah, so that's where things currently stand, and now kind of like, now that the cards are kind of for the most part all on the table, at least on this front. Once again, we still don't know how Fuyumura knew everything that she knew. But then there's also a little stinger where we see that someone was outside the classroom witnessing all of this, overhearing all of this. So what are they going to get out of this? It seems like it seems like that character, he seems like he's going to be in the mix of all this, and I'm curious what he's going to get out of this. Maybe it's just the excitement and the adventure of it, or maybe there's something else he wants from Santa as well. We'll ultimately have to wait to see as we go forward, unraveling the mystery of what happened to Ono, being kind of, I think, the major through line of this series. So, like I said, interesting premise, interesting story. The art style, specific, not just art style, but specifically like the character designs, I can't put my finger on it. It reminds me of something, and I just don't know what. Like, I swear I made this reference in another series to another anime too, but it kind of gives me a little Okage the Shadow King, that video game. Like, I've seen it from time to time. I've never played it myself, but like, something about its character design seemed like on in par with this. There's also something Tim Burton-esque. I think it's specifically Fuyumoto's design that kind of gives me very like, I don't know, it's specifically something like along the lines of like a Nightmare Before Christmas, but more specifically maybe Corpse Bride, even though I've never seen Corpse Bride, but I've seen some of the character models and stuff like that. It's just something of that ilk that feels Tim Burton-esque with her character, and I just can't put a button on like why. It's just I can't explain why that. It just that's where my mind goes with some of these character designs, both the Okage and Tim Burton comparison. I don't know why. Like I said, just interesting premise. I'm excited to continue the story to see where the hell all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.